Hi there, my name's Eddie, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm the Wolfsbane Witch. And I thought today would be a pretty good day to just settle down and do a couple videos, just kind of film a couple in a row. So if you see me wearing the same clothes, that's why. But today I wanted to film a couple videos, and one of the videos I wanted to film was a tag done by Benta the Norse Witch called Failtales. I'm going to leave a little bit more information on that and the video on that linked somewhere about and also in the description. So if you haven't seen it or heard of it yet, go ahead and check that out and check out some other lovely people's videos that I will also be linking in the description or about in the attic somewhere up there. If you haven't heard of this tag, I'm going to make it pretty simple. It's about shit that you suck at. It's about magical stuff you're not too good at, you're not too comfortable with, that maybe you've tried and you've failed at, maybe just isn't your cup of tea, stuff that you're not good at, all that. So I have a little hesitant list of just random stuff that I put together that I thought I wanted to mention. I might mention more than this within the video. I have no idea. I'm just going to kind of let this video go wherever the wind takes it. So let's begin with number one, and that is I am not that good at tarot, and I don't really like tarot that much. Yeah, I know, I'm probably the only witch who has ever said those words, but I don't really like tarot, especially, like, the original, like, Waite Smith tarot, that sort of Golden Dawn thing going on with early tarot decks is just something that, I appreciate it, and there are certain cards that I very much vibe with, like the Magician card, the Hermit. There are certain cards that I really like and can really wrap my head around, but most of them, I just, as a divinatory system, it's very hard for me because I find that it gets confusing because there's so many cards. There's too many cards, in my opinion. There's too much going on. There's too much with the imagery. It's all too much to read into, and it confuses my ADHD brain. And so I tend to find that I often go towards things that are a little bit simpler and a little bit more intuitive, and sometimes a little bit lackluster in forms of imagery, because I find that when it comes to divination, the most powerful imagery I tend to get is not necessarily from the cards that I pull or from the divinatory system I use, but from what comes to my mind's eye, what comes inside, within the imagination, within the inner world, within the psyche, whatever you want to call it, right? So I find that I tend to be drawn towards using pendulums, towards runes, towards playing card divination. I find that to be a little bit more easy. I think because there's just a little bit less going on imagery-wise. It's a little bit less confusing. I can kind of focus more on the raw meaning of the card and get less caught up in all the different things, especially like reversals kind of throw me off because I can never really truly decide if I want to read them or not. And sometimes if I get a certain card in reversed, it still kind of triggers me a little bit. I'm still like, oh no, the devil in reverse or some shit like that. Like, I don't know why I still do that, but there are just certain cards that I feel like, even though I don't necessarily stigmatize them, like I understand it, like in the moment, I feel like my heart sink when I get that card. And I'm like, why do I feel this way? Why am I still like getting that? When I don't get that, when I get like a negative rune, for instance, I don't feel that same sinking feeling, even though it means something negative or bad, right? But it doesn't, I still understand the complexities of it, the bad runes aren't necessarily bad. The bad cards like death, the devil, etc., they're not bad, right? But for some reason with tarot, especially with like the Rider-Waite Smith imagery going on, some of those cards just kind of freak me out a little bit, I guess. I don't know what it is. I guess it's just hard for me to read. I get too caught up in the imagery, not too good at it, too many cards, too much going on. I'm a simple man with simple needs, just give me a rune. The next one is, I don't really do spells that often. I kind of neglect to do spells, and I think it's not necessarily a fail, but it is something that I kind of expect more out of myself with, because of how seriously I take my magic, and because how closely it is linked to my spiritual path, and because of how closely my spiritual path links to my everyday life. I find that a lot of the time I don't do magic because I am doing spiritual work, and to me, the magic and the spiritual work kind of goes hand in hand. So if I'm doing very well in my spiritual work, I typically don't feel the need to do magic. So I don't do it. But that also kind of, although I don't need to do it, right? It also kind of sucks because you do need to practice it in order to not fall out of practice. You know, it is still a muscle you need to flex and work out with a little bit. And if you don't work out with it, it will, decay over time, and you'll need to kind of build that muscle back up. So it's a lot easier to keep exercising it regularly. And I find that I don't really do that as often as I should. Or I don't really use my tools as often as I intend to. Like, I'll have them sitting there, and I'll set up a whole altar to do this whole big ritual thing, and then the time will pass and I won't do it. And then the altar will be sitting there for a while, I'll get tired of it, and I'll redo it without ever doing the spell that I ever intended and stuff like that. That happens quite a lot too. And I don't really put pressure on myself. Like, I don't crap on myself for doing that. I allow myself to say, well, I guess that wasn't the spell for right now. But I think deep down I do feel a little bit of disappointment in myself about it, and I do kind of wish that I didn't do that as much. But at the same time, I do give myself a lot of grace and patience, because I know that I have a lot of trouble with executive dysfunction and maintaining energy and motivation and understanding how much time has passed and just keeping up with life in general. So just honestly being able to live as organized as I am right now and be able to maintain extra things outside of that, like this YouTube channel, is honestly just a really big step in my personal life. So I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to do all these extra magical things like that, even if I have it set up and really want to do it. If I don't have the energy to do it, if it slips my mind, if I forget that it has been weeks, because that happens with ADHD, you just kind of fall into like this wormhole, and then weeks go by and it feels like it's been 3 days. If that happens to me, which it does happen to me on occasion, I don't try to sweat it too much, but it does happen to me a lot. And I think it does contribute to some of the fails in my practice. And also sometimes I do have the energy and I do have the time and all that, and I'm just kind of lazy. So that's more of a failure on my part than my ADHD is, honestly. The third thing is wealth and money spells, like especially spells to like career type spells and stuff like that. I have been able to manifest a job when I needed it, but it was also linked to a bunch of other stuff that I'm a lot better at manifesting. So it wasn't just the job that I was manifesting. The job was just kind of like an offset of the other stuff. But the one time I did do a job spell, like to get a specific job, I got the job, but I ended up quitting it within like a week because it was awful. And I knew it would be kind of bad, but I was so dead set on getting that job instead of just getting a job that was right for me or getting any other job that was better. I wanted that specific job because I knew it would be easy. And yeah, it was easy, but the place was run by, I don't know. I literally couldn't tell you. Nobody could tell me. That's part of why I quit. Long story short, my schedule was wrong one day and I wasn't in the place I was supposed to be in. So I go to like the main area, to like the main office to figure out where I'm supposed to be. They can't figure it out. So I go to my boss. He doesn't know who makes the schedules. So I go to my boss's boss, the literal person who hired me, the person under the boss of the entire company. And they don't know either. And so they try to gaslight me. And so I just walked out. So, safe to say, I got the job, right? But like, I probably should have manifested better. So maybe I am good at job spells, but I'm not very good at thinking through my spells like that. Especially because I tend to try to take the easy way out in a lot of my spells, and those are the ones where I suffer a lot. So maybe that's my true fail, is trying to take the easy way out in my jobs. Trying to get a job because I know that it's going to be easy, and then having it be easy, but having it kind of blow up in my face because the reason why it was easy is because it was run by a bunch of morons who didn't know what they were doing, or who makes the schedules, apparently. Number 4 is like a really weird one. I'm going to get into this at a later date, I promise, because it's a really interesting and longer story than this. But I used to be very scared of some of the senses that I have, especially the more clairvoyant, more psychic-esque senses that I have. And when I was a kid, I was so scared of it that I purposefully banished these feelings away. Of course, I didn't know that it was clairvoyance at the time. I just thought that there was something wrong with me. And I was so scared that I literally asked it to go away and to never come back because I was scared. And it did for several years. And it took me several years of approaching and trying and keeping trying to reopen my intuition and to reopen that part of myself in order for it to even budge. So I will say that it is possible, if you do find yourself being freaked out by having an extra sense or something, it is possible to shut it out and to keep it out for a very long time, possibly for the rest of your life, if you so choose to do so. And I think many people might even have this sense and have shut it out as children, because that's what happened to me. I shut it out as, I don't know, maybe I was in like first grade. That's how old I was. So if you shut it out in first grade and then you grow up being religious or secular or what have you, and you don't believe in any of this, of course you're going to think that you don't have any senses, right? So it's not necessarily a fail on my part because I was too young to understand that it was a fail. But I wish I hadn't done that in hindsight in so many ways, because I think I would be a lot more further along in my abilities than I am now. But I'm not hating on my younger self. I understand that the stuff I went through was kind of intense, and I don't blame myself for shutting it out and being afraid at the time. So, yeah, that's one. I banished away my own psychic senses, and it took me until I was maybe 17 or 18 in order to get them back again from the time I was that young. Of course, I did have certain experiences in the in-between time, in that period of time, that still kind of kept me understanding that it wasn't completely gone, but it was more or less completely gone. It's hard to explain. Like I said, I'll get into it in an entirely different video because I know that is going to be an interesting one. So my next one is one that I don't necessarily struggle with as much anymore, but when I first got into the late beginner period, early intermediate period of my witchcraft, probably when I was in college, early college. I had a very overly excitable magician's mindset where everything was a sign, and I would give people random objects or things that I would find, or things that I had just because I felt randomly intuitively pulled to give it to them. And sometimes I would regret it because I was so in the moment that I was just doing some energetic thing, or being some weird witchy wizard guy giving them a magical trinket or some majestic shit like that. I don't really know what I was doing. And that's what I mean. I think at that point in time, I was borderline into spiritual psychosis, and I probably will make a video on that as well. But I had such an overly excitable magician's mindset that it was actually hard for me to be able to discern what was real and what wasn't. In the sense of what was an actual result from a spell versus me reading into something that wasn't actually there. What was the actual result of something I thought was a sign versus, something that was or wasn't a sign. Just weird shit like that. The next thing I'm not too good at is dream recall, or like purposefully having lucid dreams. Now, if I'm in a dream and I notice I'm in a dream, which happens a lot when I'm in a dream, sometimes I'll just kind of let the dream play out, because honestly, it gets boring being in lucid dreams, because like there's nothing to do, you get to decide what to do, but like you could do anything. And so it's kind of boring after a while. So typically if I find myself in a dream that is okay, that's not like a nightmare or something, I just let it play out and see what happens. It's a lot more entertaining that way. But if I'm in a dream and I notice it's a dream and I start lucid dreaming, usually that will wake me up after a couple minutes, or I'll just get bored and go back to normal dreaming. Or, in the case of a nightmare, I might change that part of the dream and then continue on doing whatever, right? Now, despite the fact that I can do all this lucid dreaming if I happen to be in a dream, I can't like purposefully make myself dream. I've tried, using mugwort and different teas and different, sound baths and all sorts of different methods, and I can't find a way to consistently make myself dream. It just kind of seems like if my body's going to allow me to do it, it's going to do it, and if it won't, then it won't. Most of the time, I can't or don't dream, or at least can't remember my dreams. So yeah, I'm also not that great at dream interpretation. Like when I do have dreams, I typically don't like to make them lucid, because I feel like if I do that, it will lose whatever meaning was in the dream, because I'm making it up at that point, right? So one of the reasons why I like to have my dreams be kind of random and let them be random, even if I know I'm dreaming, is because I want the chance to be able to interpret them. But even when that happens, like even when I get a good dream that's ripe with a bunch of like different symbolism and shit, I have never been able to interpret a dream, or at least in a way that felt like I understood what was happening. My dreams make no sense to me, even if there is clear symbology in them. Maybe it's just because I feel like I'm always biased, or maybe I just don't understand dream imagery that well. I've tried to read into it, but it's really hard to find like good resources on dream interpretation. And I think part of the reason why is because dreams are such a subjective thing that you can't have like the sun in a dream means this and like have it always be true, because it's such an intuitive and personal and subjective, subconscious thing. And so I find it very hard to understand dreams. And the ones I do understand are usually the nightmare ones, which kind of fucking sucks too. But yeah, so I'm not that great at dreams, not that great at tarot, don't do spells that often, not that great with money spells, vanished away my own psychic senses. What else is there? It's hard for me to like pick a direction or like a focus point for a long period of time. So for instance, I know there's a lot of witches who will say like, oh, well, during this month, I'm dedicating it to learning or focusing on this deity or this topic, right? Or doing these types of spells. And then next month I'll do these types of spells, or I'll focus on this deity, or I'll do this. That's really hard for me to keep up. The closest I get to that is doing seasonal stuff, and I do celebrate 5 of the Sabbats, although I don't really celebrate them in the traditional way. I celebrate the equinoxes, the solstices, and Samhain, because I like Halloween, okay? What can I say? I'm a witch. Sue me. I like Halloween. But yeah, I'm not really good at doing those long-term things. I'm not really good at doing consistent, like, ritual things. Like, if you ask me to do a full moon ritual every month, like, there's no fucking way I'd be able to do that. I can barely do my podcast that I've been trying to do, or at least record on the moon. on the full moon each month. Like, it's been hard for me to do just that. So if you think I'm going to be doing rituals and every full moon and new moon and doing everything, like, on top of this channel and on top of, I don't know how other people do it. And honestly, I feel like some of them are lying because how do you have the time and energy to do all that stuff? It takes a lot out of me, honestly. So instead, and I find that this is happening within a lot of the responses I've seen to this tag, is that my magic is a lot more spontaneous and a lot more intuitive and a lot more, as I said before, it's really connected to the spiritual stuff I do. And so I don't do it that often. But when I do, it's more of an intuitive thing that works. I think Lennon Smith said something like this in her video, and I think that this is pretty accurate to how I do it too, that works on the microcosm and the macrocosm, on both of those levels at the same time. Most of my spells tend to be very simple but very big rituals in that sort of sense, where it's like this big cosmic moment taking place in this one either very large elaborate spell or one very small compact meaningful spell. I don't do a whole lot of like daily things like, oh, stirring my coffee, clockwise every day and stuff like that. Like, I don't really do that. The closest I might get is with my self-care routine. That's pretty consistent. Like, I'll consistently wear certain oils, certain jewelry. I have this jewelry dedicated to Hecate and Pan. And then sometimes I'll wear different bracelets, as I've touched on before. But really, other than that, other than some of the magical things I adorn myself with, or some of the oils I might put on myself to, imbue myself with a certain energy for that day, if I feel like I'm needing it, or sometimes I might, cleanse some of the stuff, like my work stuff, or cleanse myself before I go to work if I'm feeling kind of gross, or after I come home from work if I'm feeling kind of gross. But most of the time, I'm not really doing anything consistent, like on a daily basis, other than contemplating about magic, spending a lot of time in, I guess, meditative, productive, magical thought or spiritual thought, but not necessarily doing it. I spend a lot more time thinking about it than doing it. But I still do think that at least having the energy thinking about it and understanding how it's connecting to my daily life, even if I'm not doing a spell actively, how I'm seeing magic work around me and how I'm seeing how the mundane things I do work magically around me, is kind of the point in life where I'm at right now, honestly, and I'm enjoying that. I spent a lot of time for the last, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years really spending a lot of time doing straight up magic, just almost every day, multiple spells a day. And that gave me a lot of practice. And I think since I moved within the last year and since I started this channel, I've really slowed down a lot. I've gotten a job. This is the first full-time job that I've had. I've moved into my own apartment. This is the first apartment I've ever had on my own. So I'm really slowing down. I'm really working on my mundane life. And within that, I'm seeing how magic plays out and how these principles of magic and spirituality actually exist in the world and how they actually play out and if they actually play out the way I think they do. And that's really interesting to me. So I'm not necessarily trying to get to a daily practice or trying to do the whole, this month I'll do this, next month I'll do that. If I feel like it, I will. Like, I'm definitely feeling Samhain early this year. Like, I'm already decorating for Halloween, which I do think Samhain and Halloween are different things, but I do celebrate them on the same day, just not in the same way. I see them differently. Halloween's more of like a fun, kind of kitschy sort of thing. It's more chaotic and less pagan-y and religious and magical. in that sense. Samhain I associate more with my relationship with like the Fae and the dead and mortality and Hecate and my other deities. Honestly, a lot of them work with aspects that are rather chthonic in nature, or at least kind of psychopomp like in nature. But yeah, let's see, what else do I have? I'm not that good at editing videos or filming them. I have a shitty phone that I film them on. My videos blur in and out. I have an entire room dedicated to filming, but I'm always too lazy to go in there and film. So I just sit in my bed and do it in this awful background with these awful pillows. Yeah, and honestly, I'm trying my best to get a little bit better at that and kind of develop a sort of style of video editing, but I haven't quite figured out my footing with that yet. So it's gonna be fucking weird for the next year or so, okay? I'm still experimenting. Like I've said, I'm pretty new to the whole YouTube thing, so expect it to be a little wonky for a while, okay? Okay, so this one's a little weird. I'm not that good at connecting with human spirits. Like, human spirits that have passed on, I can't really conjure them forth. Like, I can't conjure forth just some random stranger's uncle. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really get that sense. So when I say I'm clairvoyant, a lot of people think that I'm like a psychic medium or something like that. Like, oh my gosh, like, you know, did my grandpa say hi? And it's like, I don't fucking know, did he? I don't know your grandpa. And I don't say that to be rude, but for the most part, most of what I experience are people's thought forms. I experience people's like energetic fields, like their energetic bodies, their aura, if you will. I experience animal spirits, nature spirits, the fae, deities. On occasion, like haunted objects, I'll experience that, or haunted locations, I'll experience that. But human spirits, just like random human spirits, unless they approach me, which has happened on occasion, I really don't experience them, and I find it very hard to even conjure or talk to them or find a way to connect to them. There are very few experiences I've had where I've genuinely connected to a human spirit and spoken with a human spirit in the same way that I would speak with any other spirit. And having it feel like it was not something that my brain just kind of made up out of wishful thinking, right? And those were really special experiences. I loved every single one of those experiences. They're very interesting. Most of them make me burst into tears, honestly. They're always very moving, I've found. They always happen at very profound times. I might go into that a little bit later. I keep saying that, but that's because I have a lot of different things that I know that I'd love to touch on, and I know that I'd love to talk about. But yeah, speaking about that actually gets me into another thing that I wanted to talk about before I forget, which is another thing that I struggle with, is forgetting to do spells, like I said earlier. But no, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about here is filming. Filming for this channel, actually. It's not that I don't have ideas for this channel. As you can tell, I have so many ideas for this channel. I don't have a lot of energy to do those ideas. And I also find that I drag my feet when it comes to actually recording and like setting up to record. But like once I start recording and kind of get into the groove of it, I feel a lot better and I feel like I'm able to do it and it's fine. But actually like getting up, it's kind of like getting out of bed in the morning. Like actually doing that is so hard for me. And it sucks because, like I said, I have so many ideas and I just don't have the time during the week with the full-time job that I have in order to actually film all of the ideas that I have. So I need to be very choosy with what I choose to do. And I wish I had more time to do this. Honestly, I do. But with what I'm working with, I do think that I probably could be doing more. But it's just hard for me. I don't know. I feel like I lack motivation a lot of the time. And I can't tell if some of that is ADHD or if it's just laziness or what. The last thing I want to touch on is something that I think a lot of witches struggle with, but probably don't want to admit to too much, and that is cleaning. And by cleaning, I don't mean cleansing, I mean cleaning. Because in order to keep a space cleansed, like your house, your apartment, your bedroom, what have you, you can't just cleanse it. You have to actually mundane clean the damn thing. I'm not so good at that, especially when it comes to my kitchen. And the problem with that is, at least in my personal practice, I have found this to be true, that when you have a lot of clutter, especially like dirty dishes or like food or just rotting garbage in any sense, or if you have like anything in the sink, or if you have a mess in an area with a sink or with water, if there is that nasty stuff around where the water source is, it tends to accumulate bad vibes faster than other areas of the house, which is why some people might find that if they get a creepy feeling in their house out of nowhere, it typically might happen in the bathroom or in the kitchen. Now, if you find that this isn't the case for you, that's fine. I've found that this is the case for me and several other people. But hey, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, right? I'm not a clairvoyant genius. I shut that out long ago and have only reawakened it within the past handful of years, okay? But yeah, what was I saying there? Oh yeah, so I am not too good at keeping up with dishes or keeping up with taking out the trash. And so sometimes that means that I have to put in a lot of extra effort to cleanse the space after I've already done the mundane cleaning, when if I kept up with the mundane cleaning, I probably wouldn't have needed to do the cleansing. So mundane cleaning is something that I find hard to keep up with in some cases. And there will be times when my altars will collect dust on them and will be kind of dusty and need some upkeep. They won't get bad. Like, it's not like I'm leaving trash on them or anything like that. But I do think that cleaning is something that I do struggle with, and that does actually impact my practice, because I do find that I do need to do a lot more magical cleansing because I don't do as much of the mundane cleaning as often as I need to be, and it lets that energy, that kind of just gross energy, accumulate over time in a way that wouldn't happen as often if I did the more mundane cleaning. Because, I do believe in the sort of as above, so below principle. And so, if your place is dirty, if your place is cluttered, if your space is smelly or has garbage or just isn't well kept, isn't well organized, that does affect the energy of the space and what's going on there. And so I'm not saying that you have to have everything spotless, and I don't even expect that out of myself. Obviously, I'm admitting to the fact that I don't. But I do think that it is something that I kind of fail to do, and I probably should do more and focus on more, especially in the areas where I don't like to do it, like taking care of the dishes. That's mainly where it gets me, is taking care of the dishes. I find that a lot of the weird vibes that I get start in the kitchen, and it's because I don't do the dishes as often as I should. And the vibes are starting there, and then they just kind of slowly drift out of there and throughout the rest of the home until it gets to my room and I get sick of it, and then I clean my entire house and then do a cleansing. And like, that happens like every month, and I should probably just keep up with stuff a lot more so I wouldn't have to do like a big thing like that every month, because it kind of takes a little bit out of you after some time, I don't know. Another one that happens to me a lot is that I will wait for a specific day or like a specific date to do something, like a very powerful day to do a certain manifestation, certain spell work, a certain cleansing, certain whatever, right? And then the day will come, I will have the time set aside, I'll have everything set up, and I'll just decide that I want to play Minecraft or something instead for 9 hours straight. And then, oh, next thing you know, it's not that day anymore. And I have wasted that opportunity doing whatever, binging YouTube videos, playing video games, cleaning my entire house for the third time that day just because I wanted to procrastinate on doing the spell because of whatever reason. I have no idea. Ask my ADHD brain. I'd love to know as well. But yeah, that's one of them that gets to me quite often. So yeah, I think that that was about everything that I can think of off the top of my head. This is a pretty just whatever video. I just kind of read off of this little bullet point list that I had here and just kind of thought of some things off the top of my head. If you want to see anyone else's videos, go ahead and check out the videos I have linked, and check out the original video by Benta the Norse Witch up in the attic somewhere, as I said before. And if you would like to subscribe or like this video or leave a comment or do any of those wonderful things, go ahead and do so, because I know you will, because you're the coolest person on the world. And why would you not if you're the coolest person in the world, right? So with that, take care, and I'll see you in the next video of whatever I happen to make.